You're in the revenge kitchen where every lie gets diced, every backstab gets grilled. And the truth always gets served piping hot.
The cursor blinked on the amber screen as I stared at the letter I'd just finished typing. 26 years later, I can still remember every word of that fake AIDS Foundation letterhead we'd painstakingly recreated using our school's new inkjet printer. What started as righteous anger over stolen computer games had evolved into something far more elaborate and dangerous than two 16-year-old boys could have imagined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to 1994, when the internet was just a rumor computer games came on floppy disks, and a single prank could destroy a family. Picture this, it's October 1994, and I'm Andrew Coleman, a junior at Westfield High School in suburban Ohio. While my classmates are obsessing over Kurt Cobain's death and the O.J. Simpson trial, I'm living in a different world entirely, the world of personal computers. My bedroom, converted from half of our family's garage, is my sanctuary. The walls are lined with carefully labeled floppy disk storage cases, each containing treasures that most kids my age couldn't even comprehend. The Settlers, Doom II, Monkey Island 2, Civilization. These aren't just games to me, they're entire universes waiting to be explored. The problem is, in 1994, getting new computer games is like trying to find gold nuggets in your backyard. Our local electronics boutique carries maybe a dozen PC titles, most of them educational software or business applications. The good stuff, the games that push the boundaries of what these machines can do, has to be ordered from catalogs or specialty stores in bigger cities. That's where my friendship with Tommy Cooper becomes crucial. Tommy's parents run a small import business, and they've figured out how to order software from European distributors. It's expensive. We're talking $40 to $60 per game, which might as well be $1,000 to a couple of high school kids working part-time jobs at the mall. So we develop a system. We pool our money, buy one original copy of each game we want, and then we share. It's not exactly legal, but in 1994, the concept of software piracy is still murky territory. We tell ourselves we're not stealing. We're just making sure we both get to experience these digital masterpieces without going bankrupt. The sharing process is elaborate and ritualistic. We meet every Saturday morning at my house, bringing our collections in careful protective cases. We copy games to blank floppies, but here's the crucial part. We also copy the copy protection. These aren't simple files you can just drag and drop. Many games come with unique code wheels, manual-based protection systems, or special formatted disks that require specific techniques to duplicate properly. Tommy and I have turned this into an art form. We know which games need which copying utilities, how to bypass certain protection schemes, and most importantly, we test everything thoroughly before considering a trade complete. Our reputation among the few other PC enthusiasts at school is solid. When Andrew and Tommy give you a game, it works. This careful ecosystem of trust and mutual benefit works perfectly for almost 2 years, until Derek Ashford shows up. Derek transfers to Westfield High in early November, and he's everything I'm not. Where I'm careful and methodical, he's bold and impulsive. Where I blend into the background, he commands attention just by walking into a room. He's the kind of guy who can wear a Led Zeppelin t-shirt ironically and somehow make it work with khakis and boat shoes. But what really catches our attention isn't Derek's natural charisma or his obvious wealth. It's what he mentions casually during lunch on his third day at school. "Yeah, my uncle works for a software distribution company in Chicago," Derek says, picking at his cafeteria pizza with the disdain of someone accustomed to better things. "He's got like everything. Boxes and boxes of games, utilities, even some beta versions of stuff that isn't supposed to come out until next year." Tommy and I exchange glances across the lunch table. In our world, this is like someone casually mentioning they have a direct pipeline to buried treasure. "What kind of games?" I ask, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. Derek shrugs as if we're discussing the weather. "I don't know, all kinds. Some weird strategy stuff, some action games, flight simulators. He says I can have whatever I want, but honestly, I'm not that into computer games. I'm more of a sports guy." This statement hits me like a physical blow. Here's someone with access to everything Tommy and I have been desperately trying to get our hands on, and he doesn't even care. "Maybe we could work something out," Tommy suggests. "We've got some pretty rare stuff you might be interested in." Derek perks up slightly, Like what? Over the next 20 minutes, we lay out our entire collection for him. We explain the rarity of certain titles, the complexity of getting clean copies, the value of what we've assembled through months of careful trading and expensive purchases. Derek listens with the attention of someone evaluating a business proposition. Finally, he nods. Okay, here's what we'll do. You give me copies of everything you think is worth having, and I'll bring you boxes of new stuff from my uncle's warehouse. Fair trade. It seems too good to be true. And as I'll learn over the next few months, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. For the first few weeks, Derek seems like the answer to our prayers. He integrates into our small circle with surprising ease, showing up at our Saturday morning trading sessions with a canvas bag full of discs. But there are warning signs I choose to ignore. The first red flag comes during our third trade session. Derek arrives with a box of discs, but when Tommy tries to test one of the new games on my computer, it won't run. Disk error, Tommy announces, frowning at the screen. Derek waves it off. Oh, that one might be corrupted. My uncle said some of the copies got damaged during shipping. Just try another one. We try 4 more discs. 2 have corrupted files, 1 is missing crucial data files, and the 4th appears to be a demo version rather than the full game. This is weird, I say, but Derek is already making excuses. Look, my uncle deals in volume. Not everything is going to be perfect. That's why I brought so many options. Against my better judgment, I hand over our carefully prepared copies of The Settlers and Monkey Island 2. Derek promises to bring better quality discs next week. He doesn't. Week after week, the pattern repeats. Derek shows up with bags full of discs that are either corrupted, incomplete, or obvious bootlegs of bootlegs. Meanwhile, our pristine original copies disappear into his collection, never to be seen again. But the worst part isn't the broken discs or the missing files. It's Derek's attitude. During one particularly frustrating session where none of his discs work, I finally voice my concerns. Derek, maybe your uncle's source isn't as reliable as we thought. We're not getting anything usable here. Derek's expression shifts, and for just a moment, I see something cold behind his usually friendly demeanor. You know what, Andrew? Maybe you're just not as good with computers as you think you are. These discs work fine on my system at home. Then why don't you test them before bringing them here? Tommy asks. Because I trust you guys to figure it out. That's what friends do, right? There's something in the way he says friends that makes my stomach twist. It's not friendship, it's condescension. The final straw comes in early February, during a lunch conversation that starts innocuously enough. We're discussing music, and I mention that I've been listening to Queen's Greatest Hits album while working on a programming project. It's been helping me focus, and I've been getting into their more complex songs. Derek's reaction is immediate and vicious. Queen, seriously, Andrew? You know Freddie Mercury was gay, right? Died of AIDS like 3 years ago because of his lifestyle choices. The way he says lifestyle choices makes my skin crawl. There's a disgust in his voice that seems disproportionate to discussing a musician's personal life. He was an incredible performer, I respond, feeling defensive. Their music is brilliant. If you're into that kind of thing, Derek says with a smirk. Personally, I don't support that agenda. My family goes to Holy Trinity Baptist, and Pastor Williams has been very clear about what the Bible says about homosexuality. Tommy shifts uncomfortably in his seat. Dude, it's just music. Nothing's just anything, Derek replies. Everything sends a message. When you support artists like that, you're endorsing their choices. I want to argue, but something in Derek's tone warns me off. This isn't a casual disagreement about music. This is a fundamental difference in worldview, and I'm starting to realize how deep those differences run. Over the following weeks, Derek's casual homophobia becomes a regular feature of our interactions. He makes jokes about AIDS, refers to anything he dislikes as gay, and frequently mentions his family's church and their views on moral decay in society. It's around this time that I start paying closer attention to the games Derek brings us. Not just whether they work, but where they might have come from. The revelation comes by accident. I'm helping Mr. Patterson, our computer science teacher, organize the software library in the computer lab after school when I notice something familiar. There in a box marked Damaged, corrupted, do not distribute are several floppy disks that look exactly like ones Derek has been bringing us. What's this box? I ask Mr. Patterson. Oh, that's software that came damaged from our educational supplier. We were supposed to send them back for replacement, but they told us to just dispose of them since the shipping costs weren't worth it. He picks up one of the disks. Most of these probably have corrupted files or missing components. Real shame, some of these are pretty expensive programs. My heart sinks as I recognize disc after disc that Derek has presented to us as rare finds from his uncle's warehouse. Mr. Patterson, would it be okay if I took some of these home? Maybe I could figure out what's wrong with them. Sure, Andrew, just don't get your hopes up. If our tech department couldn't get them working, they're probably beyond saving. That evening, I sit in my garage bedroom with a dozen discs spread across my desk. Each one tells the same story. Derek has been raiding the school's damaged software collection and presenting the discs to us as treasures from his non-existent uncle's warehouse. But the betrayal goes deeper than I initially realize. Over the next few days, I do some detective work. I check with other students who have traded with Derek, and I discover a pattern. He's been collecting functional software from multiple sources, not just Tommy and me, and giving everyone the same broken discs from the school's disposal bin. Derek Ashford doesn't have an uncle in the software business. He's a con artist who's been systematically cheating every computer enthusiast in our school. The rage builds slowly, like pressure in a steam engine. Every time I see Derek laughing with his new friends at lunch, every casual homophobic comment, every smug smile when he talks about his family's superior moral values, the anger grows. Tommy feels it too. We start meeting without Derek, plotting our next move. We could just expose him, Tommy suggests. Tell everyone what he's been doing. Who would believe us? I counter. He's charming, popular, and comes from money. We're just the computer nerds who probably made a mistake. So what do you want to do? That's when I remember the AIDS Education Assembly from the previous month and the stack of informational materials sitting in my closet. An idea begins to form, terrible, brilliant, and completely disproportionate to the crime. I want to give Derek exactly what he's been giving us, I say, something that looks real but isn't. The AIDS Education Assembly happens on a gray February morning, mandated by the state as part of our health curriculum. The entire junior class files into the gymnasium, most of us treating it as a welcome break from regular classes rather than an important educational opportunity. The presenter is Dr. Patricia Williams from the Ohio AIDS Foundation, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach to discussing difficult topics. She's clearly done this presentation hundreds of times, but she manages to make it feel personal and relevant. HIV and AIDS don't discriminate, Dr. Williams explains, clicking through slides on an overhead projector. They affect people of all ages, races, and backgrounds, but what we've learned over the past decade is that education and prevention are our most powerful tools. I find myself actually paying attention, partly because the topic is more complex than I'd realized, and partly because I can see Derek fidgeting uncomfortably in the bleachers across from me. Every time Dr. Williams mentions homosexuality or gay men, Derek's jaw tightens. The presentation covers the basics: transmission, prevention, treatment options, and social stigma. But what strikes me most is Dr. Williams's emphasis on compassion and understanding. One of the biggest challenges we face isn't medical, it's social, she says. Fear and prejudice have created additional suffering for people who are already dealing with a serious illness. Our job as a community is to respond with knowledge, not fear, and with love, not judgment. I glance over at Derek again. His expression has shifted from discomfort to barely concealed anger. After the presentation, we're given information packets, pamphlets about HIV prevention, contact information for local support groups, and yes, free condoms with the Ohio AIDS Foundation logo prominently displayed. Most students toss the materials into their backpacks without a second thought, but I find myself studying the pamphlets carefully. The foundation's letterhead is professionally designed, with a distinctive logo and contact information clearly displayed. It's Tommy who makes the connection first. "Dude," he whispers as we're leaving the gymnasium, "did you see Derek's face during that presentation?" "Yeah, he looked like he was going to explode." Remember what he said about Queen and Freddie Mercury, about his family's church and their views on homosexuality. I nod, not sure where Tommy's going with this. What if someone from that foundation sent Derek some information? Maybe thanking him for his interest or something. The idea hits me like a lightning bolt. Tommy, you're a genius. That evening, Tommy and I spread the AIDS Foundation materials across my desk like we're planning a military operation. The pamphlets, the letterhead, the contact information, everything we need to create a convincing fake letter. Okay, I say, studying the foundation's logo. We need to recreate this exactly. The colors, the fonts, the layout, everything has to be perfect. Can your printer handle color graphics? Tommy asks. I nod toward my father's pride and joy, a brand new HP DeskJet 500C color inkjet printer that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Dad bought it for his consulting business, but he lets me use it for school projects. The plan begins to take shape. We'll create a fake letter from the Ohio AIDS Foundation, addressed to Derek personally, thanking him for his inquiry and providing educational materials. The key is making it look completely authentic while creating a scenario that will cause maximum embarrassment with his family. What's Derek's home address? Tommy asks. I pull out our school directory. 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. That's in Brookhaven Estates, right? Definitely, that's where all the rich families live. Perfect, we'll address it to Mr. Derek Ashford, so his parents will think it's official mail. Over the next 2 hours, we craft the letter with the obsessive attention to detail that we usually reserve for copying complex software. Every element is carefully researched and replicated. The letterhead matches the foundation's materials exactly, down to the specific shade of blue in their logo. We study the pamphlets to understand the foundation's writing style, professional but compassionate, informative without being preachy. The letter itself is a masterpiece of subtle manipulation. Dear Derek, thank you for your recent inquiry regarding HIV education and support services for young adults questioning their sexual orientation. We understand that reaching out can be difficult, especially for someone from a conservative family background. As discussed during your confidential phone consultation, we want to assure you that your privacy is our top priority. The questions you asked about coming out to religious parents and finding age-appropriate support groups show tremendous courage and self-awareness. Enclosed, you'll find several resources that should answer many of your questions, including our pamphlet, Faith and Sexual Identity, Finding Balance, and contact information for our youth support group that meets monthly in Columbus. We also want to remind you of the importance of safe practices as you explore your identity. The enclosed protection and educational materials are provided free of charge to all our clients. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you need additional support or have further questions. You're not alone in this journey. Sincerely, Dr. Patricia Williams, Director of Youth Outreach, Ohio AIDS Foundation. This is either brilliant or completely insane, Tommy says as we print the final version. Maybe both, I admit. But Derek's been screwing over people for months. It's time someone screwed him back. We include several pamphlets from the assembly, along with a handful of the free condoms. Everything goes into an official foundation envelope. We'd grabbed a few extras during the presentation, just in case. The final touch is the most crucial. We address the envelope to Mr. Derek Ashford and mail it to his family's house, ensuring that his parents will receive it first. The next few days crawl by with agonizing slowness. Tommy and I watch Derek carefully during school, looking for any signs that our letter has arrived and been discovered. Derek seems normal on Monday, same arrogant attitude, same casual cruelty toward anything he considers beneath him. During lunch, he makes another comment about gay agenda propaganda when someone mentions seeing a movie with a same-sex subplot. Tuesday brings no change. Derek is his usual self, charming and confident, completely unaware that a time bomb is ticking in his family's mailbox. Wednesday morning, however, brings a noticeable shift. Derek arrives at school looking tired, with dark circles under his eyes. His usual perfect grooming is slightly off, his hair isn't quite as carefully styled, and his clothes look like they were grabbed hastily from the closet. Rough night? Tommy asks innocently when we pass Derek in the hallway. Family stuff, Derek mutters, avoiding eye contact. Thursday is when the real changes become apparent. Derek misses first period entirely, arriving during second period with a note from the office. When he does show up, he looks like he hasn't slept in days. His hands shake slightly when he takes notes, and he jumps at unexpected sounds. During lunch, instead of holding court at his usual table, Derek sits alone, picking at his food without eating. "Should we check on him?" Tommy whispers. Part of me feels a twinge of guilt. Whatever's happening at the Ashford house is clearly serious, and I'm starting to wonder if our prank has gone too far. But then I remember the months of lies, the broken promises, the casual theft of our hard-earned software collection. Derek brought this on himself. Friday morning brings the explosion we've been waiting for, though it's bigger than either of us anticipated. Derek doesn't show up for school at all. Around lunchtime, Tommy and I are called to the principal's office. My stomach drops as we walk down the administrative hallway, past the secretary's desk, into Principal Morrison's office. Sitting across from Mr. Morrison's desk are two adults I don't recognize, a well-dressed man in an expensive suit, and a woman whose red-rimmed eyes suggest she's been crying recently. "Andrew Tommy," Principal Morrison says, his voice unusually grave. "I'd like you to meet Mr. and Mrs. Ashford, Derek's parents." My blood turns to ice water. Mrs. Ashford looks up at us with an expression of absolute devastation. She's a small woman, probably in her 40s, with the kind of carefully maintained appearance that speaks of significant time and money spent on presentation. But today her makeup is smudged, her hair is slightly disheveled, and her hands shake as she clutches a tissue. Mr. Ashford is a different story entirely. He's tall, broad-shouldered, and radiates the kind of controlled fury that suggests barely contained violence. His eyes lock onto mine with an intensity that makes me want to disappear. "These boys," Mr. Ashford says, his voice low and dangerous, "have been involved in some kind of correspondence with our son." Principal Morrison looks confused. "What kind of correspondence?" Mrs. Ashford breaks down completely, sobbing into her tissue. They sent him things, terrible things about homosexuality and diseases." The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. "I'm not sure I understand," Principal Morrison says carefully. Mr. Ashford reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a familiar envelope, our perfectly crafted Ohio AIDS Foundation letter, along with all the accompanying materials. "Someone," he says, his voice dripping with contempt, "thought it would be amusing to send our son materials from an AIDS organization, pretending that he had requested information about homosexuality." Principal Morrison examines the letter, his expression growing more serious by the moment. "This appears to be from a legitimate organization," he says slowly. "It's fake," Mr. Ashford snaps. "My son would never, ever request information like this. Someone is playing a sick joke, and based on Derek's description of his interactions with these two boys, we believe they're responsible." I feel Tommy tense beside me. This is spiraling far beyond what we had planned. "Boys," Principal Morrison says, looking directly at us, "do you know anything about this letter?" The moment of truth. I could lie, deny everything, and probably get away with it. The letter is so well crafted that proving it's fake would be nearly impossible. But looking at Mrs. Ashford's tear-stained face, I realize that our prank has caused genuine pain to someone who didn't deserve it. Whatever Derek's crimes, his mother is an innocent victim of our revenge. "Yes, sir," I say quietly, "we sent it." Tommy shoots me a look of pure panic, but I continue. "Derek has been cheating us for months. He's been taking our software and giving us broken disks in return. We wanted to get back at him by suggesting our son is homosexual." Mr. Ashford's voice rises dangerously. "We just wanted to embarrass him," Tommy says weakly. "We didn't think." "You didn't think what?" Mrs. Ashford asks through her tears. "You didn't think that accusing someone of being gay could destroy their relationship with their family. You didn't think that some people take these accusations seriously." The weight of what we've done begins to settle on me. In our desire for revenge against Derek's dishonesty, we've weaponized his family's prejudice against them. "What exactly has been happening at home?" Principal Morrison asks gently. Mrs. Ashford takes a shaky breath. "When that letter arrived on Wednesday, my husband, we confronted Derek about it. He denied everything, of course, but we didn't believe him. The letter was so detailed, so specific. We grounded him indefinitely, Mr. Ashford adds. Removed him from his sports teams, canceled his social activities, and arranged for counseling with our pastor. Counseling, Principal Morrison asks. To address his condition, Mrs. Ashford says, as if the words taste bitter in her mouth. I feel sick to my stomach. What started as a prank to embarrass Derek has led to his family subjecting him to what sounds like conversion therapy. Derek figured out that these two were involved when he started asking questions at school, Mr. Ashford continues. He remembered giving them computer software and thought they might be angry about something. What kind of software exchange? Principal Morrison asks. For the next several minutes, the truth about Derek's con game comes out. His theft of damaged disks from the computer lab, his lies about having an uncle in the software business, his systematic cheating of multiple students. Principal Morrison's expression grows steadily more grave as the story unfolds. So Derek was essentially stealing from other students, and you two decided to retaliate by sending this fake letter. We didn't mean for his family to react like this, I say desperately. We just thought it would be embarrassing. Embarrassing. Mr. Ashford's voice reaches a dangerous volume. You thought destroying my son's reputation and relationships would be embarrassing. Mr. Ashford, Principal Morrison interjects, I understand you're upset, but let's try to keep this productive. But Mr. Ashford is beyond reason. These boys have committed fraud, harassment, and character assassination against my son. I want them expelled, and I want criminal charges filed. The room falls silent, except for Mrs. Ashford's quiet crying. What follows is the longest hour of my life. Phone calls are made to our parents, to the district administration, and to the police. Yes, the police. My father arrives first, still wearing his work clothes and looking confused about why he's been called away from an important client meeting. Tommy's mother shows up 20 minutes later, and the small principal's office becomes uncomfortably crowded. Officer Jennifer Martinez from the Westfield Police Department is surprisingly young and approaches the situation with professional curiosity rather than judgment. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she says, reviewing the fake letter. You boys created this document, including copying the letterhead and contact information of a real organization, and mailed it to Derek's house with the intent to deceive his family. Yes, ma'am, I answer. And Derek had been systematically deceiving you and other students about software trades. Yes, ma'am. Officer Martinez looks at Principal Morrison. What kind of damages are we talking about here? The software Derek took had a combined value of approximately $400, Principal Morrison says, consulting his notes. And the fake letter? No monetary damages, but significant emotional distress to the family. Officer Martinez nods thoughtfully. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford, what outcome are you looking for here? Mr. Ashford's answer is immediate. Full prosecution. These boys need to learn that actions have consequences. But Mrs. Ashford speaks up for the first time in several minutes. I just want to understand why they thought this was appropriate. Officer Martinez turns to us. Why don't you explain your thinking process? I take a deep breath and try to put the past few months into context. I explain Derek's systematic cheating, his lies about his uncle, the money Tommy and I lost buying original software that Derek effectively stole from us. But why this particular type of retaliation? Mrs. Ashford asks. This is the hardest part to explain. Derek has been making homophobic comments for months, I say carefully. He talks about his family's religious beliefs and how they feel about gay people. We thought if his family believed he was gay, it would embarrass him. So you used our religious beliefs against us, Mrs. Ashford says quietly. We didn't think about you, Tommy admits. We were just angry at Derek. The silence that follows is deafening. Finally, Officer Martinez speaks. Technically, what these boys did could be considered fraud, harassment, or criminal impersonation. However, given their ages, the circumstances, and the fact that Derek was also engaged in deceptive practices, I think we might be able to work out an alternative resolution. What kind of alternative? Mr. Ashford asks suspiciously. Community service, restitution for the stolen software, and a formal apology to your family. The boys would also be required to contact the Real AIDS Foundation and explain what they did to ensure there's no ongoing confusion. Principal Morrison nods approvingly. The school would also implement appropriate disciplinary measures. I expect Mr. Ashford to reject this immediately, but instead he looks at his wife. Mrs. Ashford studies Tommy and me for a long moment. "Do you understand what you've done to our family?" she asks. "Yes, ma'am," I say, and I mean it. "We're sorry. Our son is now in counseling because we believed he might be homosexual. Do you understand how that makes me feel as a mother?" This question hangs in the air like a challenge. Part of me wants to point out that there's nothing wrong with being gay, that their reaction is the real problem here. But I'm 16 years old, sitting in a principal's office, facing potential criminal charges, and I don't have the courage or wisdom to take on that bigger fight. "We're sorry we hurt your family," Tommy says instead. Mrs. Ashford nods slowly. I think I'd prefer the alternative resolution officer Martinez suggested." Mr. Ashford looks shocked. "Patricia, these boys made a terrible mistake," she interrupts. "But ruining their futures won't undo the damage to our family. Maybe it's better if everyone learns from this and moves forward." The resolution is swift and comprehensive. Tommy and I are suspended for 1 week, required to perform 60 hours of community service, and must pay restitution to all students Derek had cheated, not just ourselves. We also have to write formal apology letters to the Ashford family and to Dr. Patricia Williams at the Ohio AIDS Foundation, explaining what we did and why. Most importantly, we're required to meet with Dr. Williams in person to discuss the impact of our actions.
Need a break from the drama? Nah, but while you're here, why not hit like and subscribe buttons? We serve revenge hot and regular for you.
Derek, meanwhile, faces his own consequences. The evidence of his systematic cheating leads to his suspension and removal from all extracurricular activities. Several families are considering pressing charges for the theft of their software. But the most significant consequence is one that none of us anticipated. 2 weeks after our meeting in the principal's office, Tommy and I are serving our community service hours at the local food bank when Derek appears in the volunteer lineup. We haven't spoken since the truth came out, and the tension is immediately obvious. Derek looks terrible. He's lost weight, his usual confident demeanor has been replaced by something approaching shell shock, and he avoids eye contact with everyone. Mrs. Henderson, who runs the volunteer program, assigns us to the same shift sorting donated clothing. For the first hour, we work in complete silence. Finally, Derek speaks. "You have no idea what you've done," he says quietly, not looking up from the box of shirts he's sorting. "We know we screwed up," I reply. "We're sorry about your family." "Sorry," Derek's voice is bitter. "My parents think I'm gay, Andrew. They've taken me to 3 different counselors, one of whom specializes in sexual reorientation therapy. They monitor my phone calls, read my mail, and question me about every friend I have. The weight of this hits me like a physical blow. Derek, we never meant." "You never meant what?" "You never meant to use my family's beliefs against me. You never meant to turn my parents into weapons." Tommy looks up from his sorting. "You were stealing from us for months." "I was taking broken computer disks," Derek snaps. "You've destroyed my relationship with my family over some stupid games." "Those games cost us hundreds of dollars," I protest. "And this has cost me my family." The argument attracts Mrs. Henderson's attention, and she separates us for the rest of our shift. But Derek's words stick with me for days afterward. That evening I call Tommy. "Do you think we went too far?" I ask. "He was stealing from us, Andrew, and from other people too. But what's happening to him now? It's not proportional." Tommy is quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do about it?" It's a good question, and I don't have a good answer. Our required meeting with Dr. Patricia Williams takes place the following Saturday at the AIDS Foundation offices in downtown Columbus. The building is smaller than I expected, occupying the 2nd floor of a converted warehouse in a neighborhood that's clearly seen better days. Dr. Williams greets us in the lobby personally, and I'm struck by how different she seems outside the formal setting of our school assembly. She's wearing jeans and a sweater instead of professional attire, and her manner is more casual but no less serious. "Andrew and Tommy," she says, shaking our hands, "thank you for coming in to discuss this situation." Her office is cluttered but organized, with educational posters covering most of the available wall space. She offers us seats across from her desk and gets straight to the point. "I've read your apology letters," she begins, "and I've spoken with Principal Morrison about the circumstances that led to your decision to impersonate our organization. I want to understand your thinking process." Over the next hour, we explain everything: Derek's cheating, our growing frustration, the decision to use his family's prejudices against him. Dr. Williams listens without judgment, asking clarifying questions but avoiding any obvious condemnation. "Do you understand why what you did was problematic beyond just the deception?" she finally asks. "We hurt his family," Tommy offers. "That's part of it, but there's something bigger here." Dr. Williams leans forward. "You used homosexuality as a weapon. You took something that's a natural part of human diversity and turned it into a tool for causing shame and fear." I feel my face flush. "We didn't mean to say being gay was bad." "But that's exactly what you did," Dr. Williams responds gently. "Your entire plan was based on the assumption that being perceived as gay would be devastating to Derek and his family. You weaponized prejudice." The truth of this hits me like a sledgehammer. In our anger at Derek's deception, we'd perpetuated the very attitudes that cause real harm to real people. "What makes this especially problematic," Dr. Williams continues, "is that there are probably students in your school who are actually struggling with questions about their sexual orientation. Your prank reinforces the idea that being gay is something shameful, something to be feared and hidden." "We never thought about that," I admit. "I know you didn't, but that's part of the problem. When we act out of anger or desire for revenge, we often don't consider the broader implications of our actions." Dr. Williams pulls out a folder from her desk drawer. "I want to show you something." The folder contains letters, dozens of them, handwritten on various types of paper. Some are typed, others are written in careful cursive, and a few appear to be from much younger writers based on the unsteady handwriting. "These are letters we receive from young people seeking information and support," Dr. Williams explains. "Some are from teenagers who think they might be gay or lesbian. Others are from kids whose parents have reacted badly to their sexual orientation. Some are from students whose classmates have bullied them for being different." She pulls out one letter and reads from it. "Dear AIDS Foundation, I'm 16 and I think I might be gay, but I can't tell anyone because my family thinks gay people are evil. Can you send me information but not to my house because my parents read my mail? I'm scared and don't know what to do." The similarity to our fake letter is unmistakable, and I feel sick to my stomach. "Every month, we receive genuine letters that are remarkably similar to the fake one you created," Dr. Williams says. "Young people reaching out in secret, terrified of their families' reactions, desperately seeking information and support." "We didn't know," Tommy says quietly. "I believe that, but now you do know. The question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge?" Dr. Williams has a suggestion that catches us completely off guard. "I'd like you to consider doing your community service hours here at the foundation," she says. "Not as punishment, but as education. I think you could learn something valuable about the real impact of prejudice and maybe contribute something positive in the process." "What kind of work?" I ask. "Clerical stuff mostly. Filing, data entry, preparing educational materials for distribution. But you'd also attend our monthly support group meetings as observers, help with our youth outreach programs, and assist with our educational presentations to schools." The idea of spending 60 hours in an AIDS Foundation office is intimidating, but there's something appealing about turning our community service into genuine learning. "Would we be able to help with the letters?" Tommy asks. "The ones from kids seeking information." Dr. Williams smiles for the first time since we've met. That's exactly the kind of thinking I was hoping to see. We agree to her proposal, and she schedules us to start the following week. As we're leaving, Dr. Williams stops us at the door. "One more thing," she says. "I want you to understand that the harm you've caused isn't just to Derek and his family. You've also made it harder for real organizations like ours to do our work. When people create fake letters from legitimate nonprofits, it undermines trust in all of our communications. This is another aspect of our actions that I hadn't considered, and it adds another layer to my growing understanding of how far-reaching the consequences of our prank have been. Our third week of community service at the AIDS Foundation coincides with one of their monthly support group meetings for LGBTQ plus youth and their families. Dr. Williams has asked us to help set up chairs and prepare refreshments, but we're also allowed to observe the meeting from the back of the room. About 20 people attend, teenagers and young adults ranging from maybe 15 to 25, along with a handful of parents and other family members. The group is more diverse than I expected, representing different races, economic backgrounds, and family situations. The meeting follows a structured format, with participants sharing their experiences, challenges, and successes from the past month. Some stories are heartbreaking: kids who have been kicked out of their homes, students facing harassment at school, families struggling to understand and accept their children's identities. But other stories are hopeful: parents who have learned to be supportive, young people who have found acceptance in their communities, and individuals who have built new families of choice when their biological families couldn't accept them. I'm taking notes. Dr. Williams has asked us to write a reflection paper about the experience, when I notice someone familiar in the hallway outside the meeting room. It's Derek. He's standing near the water fountain, clearly agitated, checking his watch repeatedly. He appears to be working up the courage to enter the meeting room, but something is holding him back. Our eyes meet through the doorway, and his expression shifts from anxiety to something approaching panic. Without thinking, I get up and walk into the hallway. "Derek, what are you doing here?" He looks around frantically, as if checking to see who might have observed our interaction. "Andrew, please don't tell anyone you saw me here." "I don't understand. Why are you?" And then it hits me. Oh. Derek's presence at an LGBTQ plus support group meeting can only mean one thing. "How long have you known?" I ask quietly. Derek's composure finally cracks. "Since I was 12, he whispers. "Maybe earlier. I've been fighting it for years, praying it would go away, trying to convince myself it was just a phase." The irony is overwhelming. Our fake letter, designed to embarrass Derek by falsely suggesting he was gay, had accidentally hit closer to the truth than we could have imagined. "Derek, I'm so sorry. If we had known." "If you had known what?" "That you were actually right, that your cruel joke was accidentally accurate." I don't know how to respond to this. "The worst part," Derek continues, "is that your letter gave me hope for about 5 minutes. When I first read it, before I realized it was fake, I thought maybe someone understood what I was going through. I thought maybe there was help available." "There is help available," I say, gesturing toward the meeting room. "These people seem really supportive." "I can't go in there," Derek says. "What if someone from school sees me? What if word gets back to my parents?" "Your parents already think you're gay because of our letter." "Exactly, and look how well that's going." Derek has a point. If his family's reaction to the possibility that he might be gay has been this severe, I can't imagine how they'd respond to confirmation. "Have you talked to Dr. Williams?" I ask. Derek shakes his head. "I called the foundation 3 times, but I always hang up before anyone answers." An idea begins to form. "What if I talk to her for you, explain the situation?" "Andrew, no, you've done enough." "I've done enough damage," I correct. "Maybe it's time I tried to do something helpful." I convince Derek to wait in the lobby while I return to the meeting. Dr. Williams notices my agitation and follows me out during a break between speakers. "Is everything okay?" she asks. Dr. Williams, hypothetically, if someone was afraid to attend a support group meeting because they were worried about confidentiality, what would you tell them? She raises an eyebrow. "I'd tell them that everything that happens in our support groups is strictly confidential. We have policies in place to protect the privacy of all participants, and we take those policies very seriously." And if that someone was the same person who was the target of a fake letter that caused problems with their family? Dr. Williams's expression shifts to understanding. "Is Derek here?" I nod toward the lobby. He's terrified. Of course he is. His family's reaction to the possibility that he might be gay has probably confirmed his worst fears about coming out. "What should I do?" Nothing, Dr. Williams says firmly. This isn't your problem to solve, Andrew. Derek needs to make his own decisions about when and how to seek support. But if our letter made things worse for him? Your letter didn't make Derek gay, Dr. Williams interrupts. If he's struggling with his sexual orientation, that's something he's been dealing with long before your prank. What your letter did was force a conversation that he wasn't ready to have. She pauses, thinking. However, if Derek wants to talk to someone, I'd be happy to meet with him privately. No support group, no other participants, just a confidential conversation about his options. I relay this offer to Derek, who looks relieved but still hesitant. Would you stay, he asks, just for the initial conversation? It's a strange request, considering our recent history, but I understand why he's asking. I represent a known quantity in a situation full of unknowns. If Dr. Williams is okay with it, sure. Dr. Williams's private office feels different in the evening, with the overhead lights dimmed and the sounds of the city filtering in through the windows. Derek sits rigidly in his chair, hands clasped tightly in his lap, while I try to make myself as unobtrusive as possible. Derek, Dr. Williams begins gently, Andrew mentioned that you've been struggling with some personal issues. Would you like to talk about what's been going on? For several minutes, Derek says nothing. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. I think I might be gay. The words hang in the air like a confession. How long have you been wondering about this? Dr. Williams asks. Years, since middle school, maybe earlier. I kept thinking it would go away, that it was just a phase or confusion or something. And how do you feel about the possibility? Derek's laugh is bitter. Terrified, my family. You've seen how they reacted to even the suggestion. They think homosexuality is a choice, a sin, something that can be fixed with enough prayer and counseling. What do you think? I don't know what I think anymore. I've been praying for God to make me normal for 4 years. If being gay is a choice, why can't I choose to be straight? Dr. Williams nods sympathetically. That's a question a lot of young people struggle with, especially those from religious families. What I can tell you is that the scientific consensus is clear. Sexual orientation isn't a choice any more than being left-handed or having blue eyes is a choice. Then why do so many religious people believe it is? Because, Dr. Williams says carefully, it's easier to condemn something if you believe it's a deliberate decision rather than an inherent characteristic. If homosexuality is a choice, then people can be held responsible for making the wrong choice. If it's not a choice, then the moral framework becomes much more complicated. Derek considers this. So you're saying my parents are wrong. I'm saying your parents are operating from a belief system that isn't supported by scientific evidence. That doesn't make them bad people, but it does mean their perspective might not be the most helpful for you right now. What am I supposed to do? I can't change my family's beliefs, and I can't change who I am. Those aren't your only 2 options, Dr. Williams says. There are families who learn to accept and love their LGBTQ+ children. There are religious communities that embrace diversity in sexual orientation, and there are support systems available for young people navigating these challenges. But not my family, not my church. Maybe not right now, but people can change, Derek. It sometimes takes time, education, and exposure to different perspectives, but people can change. I find myself thinking about Mrs. Ashford's tears in the principal's office, and wonder if her distress was about more than just family reputation. As our conversation with Dr. Williams continues, something unexpected happens. Derek and I begin to find common ground. We're both 16 years old, both struggling with the consequences of choices we've made, both trying to figure out how to move forward from a situation that's spiraled far beyond our control. I need to ask you something, Derek says, turning to me. Why did you choose that particular type of revenge? Why make it about being gay? It's a fair question, and one I've been avoiding examining too closely. Because I knew it would hurt you, I admit. I knew your family's beliefs, and I knew that being perceived as gay would be devastating in your world. So you used my family's prejudice as a weapon. Yes, and I'm sorry about that. Derek nods slowly. I need you to understand something. When I made those comments about Queen and Freddie Mercury, when I talked about my family's beliefs, I wasn't just expressing prejudice. I was trying to convince myself that I believed those things too. This revelation reframes our entire conflict. Derek's homophobic comments weren't just casual bigotry, they were desperate attempts at self-denial. The things I said about gay people, Derek continues, I was saying them about myself. Every cruel comment, every joke, every expression of disgust. I was trying to hate away a part of myself that I couldn't change. That must have been exhausting, Dr. Williams observes. It was, and when your letter arrived, Andrew, part of me was relieved. For about 5 minutes, I thought maybe someone understood what I was going through. Maybe I wasn't alone. And then you realized it was fake. And then I realized that my worst fears about coming out were coming true, even though I hadn't actually come out. The complexity of the situation is staggering. Our prank had accidentally forced Derek into the exact scenario he'd been terrified of his entire adolescence. What do you need from me? I ask. Derek thinks for a moment. I need you to understand that this isn't just about computer games anymore. Your letter set off a chain of events that's affecting every aspect of my life. I know, and I want to help fix it if I can. I don't think you can fix it, but maybe we can figure out how to move forward together. 2 weeks later, Derek attends his first support group meeting. I'm not there. Dr. Williams and Derek both agree that my presence might be more distraction than support. But Tommy and I are in the building, working on our community service tasks in the adjacent office. Through the thin walls, we can hear fragments of conversation, laughter, and occasional emotional moments. It sounds like a normal group of teenagers dealing with typical teenage problems, except that their problems are complicated by family rejection, social stigma, and internal conflict. Derek emerges from the meeting looking drained, but somehow lighter. He finds Tommy and me in the filing room, sorting through donation requests. How was it? I ask. Weird, good weird, but weird. There was this kid, maybe 15, whose parents sent him to conversion therapy for 6 months before finally accepting that it wasn't working. That sounds terrible. Yeah, but he's okay now. His family got counseling, learned about sexual orientation, and now they're supportive. He says his dad even marches in pride parades now. Derek sits down across from us, leaning back in his chair. There was also this girl whose grandmother disowned her when she came out, but then her grandmother's best friend, who's been married to another woman for 30 years, helped change her mind. Now they're close again. So there's hope, Tommy says. Maybe. Dr. Williams thinks there are ways to approach my parents that might be more successful than the confrontational route we accidentally started with. Like what? Education, mostly. Helping them understand that sexual orientation isn't a choice or a mental illness. Introducing them to other religious families who have learned to accept their LGBTQ+ kids. Baby steps. It sounds optimistic, but I can't help remembering Mr. Ashford's fury in the principal's office. Are you going to tell them the truth? I ask. Derek is quiet for a long moment. Eventually, but first I need to be okay with the truth myself, and I need to build a support system in case they react badly. What about school? What about it? Are you going to come out at school? Derek laughs, but there's no humor in it. Andrew, I can barely admit to myself that I'm gay. Coming out at school feels like climbing Mount Everest when I'm still learning to walk. His point is well taken. I've been thinking about the situation in terms of simple disclosure, but Derek is dealing with a complete reconstruction of his identity and his relationship with his family and community. 3 weeks into Derek's participation in the support group, something remarkable happens. Mrs. Ashford calls Dr. Williams. Derek is as surprised as anyone when Dr. Williams mentions the phone call during one of their private sessions. Your mother wants to meet with me, Dr. Williams explains. She has questions about sexual orientation and family dynamics. What kind of questions? Derek asks suspiciously. The kind that suggest she's doing her own research and education. This development catches everyone off guard. Mr. Ashford has been the dominant voice in the family's reaction to the fake letter, and Mrs. Ashford has seemed to defer to his judgment. The idea that she might be questioning their approach is unexpected. Should I be there for the meeting? Derek asks. That's up to you, but I think it might be more productive if I meet with her alone first. Sometimes parents need space to ask questions they wouldn't feel comfortable asking in front of their children. Derek agrees to let Dr. Williams and his mother meet privately. The meeting takes place on a Saturday morning, and Derek spends the entire time at the foundation office, ostensibly helping Tommy and me with filing but actually pacing nervously and checking the clock every 5 minutes. When Dr. Williams returns from her meeting with Mrs. Ashford, her expression is carefully neutral. "How did it go?" Derek asks immediately. "It was illuminating. Your mother has been doing a lot of reading and thinking since your letter arrived." "What kind of reading?" "Medical journals, psychology research, articles about families with LGBTQ plus children. She's also been talking to other parents at your church." Derek looks surprised. "Other parents?" "Apparently, your family isn't the only one at Holy Trinity Baptist dealing with questions about sexual orientation. There are several families who have had similar experiences." This revelation reshapes Derek's understanding of his community. He'd assumed his family's reaction was typical of everyone in their church, but it sounds like there's more diversity of opinion than he realized. "What did she want to know?" Derek asks. "Primarily, she wanted to understand whether sexual orientation is really something that can be changed through counseling or prayer. She's been researching conversion therapy and found some disturbing information about its effectiveness and safety. And she's beginning to question whether the approach your family has been taking is helpful or harmful." Dr. Williams sits down across from Derek, her expression becoming more serious. "Derek, I need to be honest with you. Your mother is struggling with a fundamental conflict between her religious beliefs and her love for you. She's trying to find a way to reconcile those two things, but it's not an easy process." "What does that mean for me?" "It means that change is possible, but it's going to take time. And it means you might need to be patient while your family works through their own learning process." 2 months after our fake AIDS Foundation letter destroyed Derek's family equilibrium, Derek writes a real letter. This one is addressed to his parents, and he spends weeks crafting it with input from Dr. Williams and feedback from his support group. The letter is nothing like the fake one Tommy and I created. Where our letter was designed to shock and embarrass, Derek's letter is careful, thoughtful, and deeply personal. He explains his feelings, his struggles, his fears, and his hopes for the future. He addresses his family's religious concerns directly, citing research and theology that supports a more inclusive interpretation of Christian teaching about homosexuality. Most importantly, he makes it clear that this isn't a choice he's making, but an aspect of himself that he's finally ready to acknowledge and accept. Derek shows Tommy and me the letter before he gives it to his parents. Reading it is emotionally overwhelming, not just because of the vulnerability and courage it represents, but because of the stark contrast between Derek's authentic words and the cruel fiction we'd created. "Are you ready for their reaction?" I ask. "No," Derek admits, "but I'm tired of living in fear, and Dr. Williams thinks my mom might be more receptive than we originally thought." "What about your dad?" Derek's expression darkens. "That's going to be harder, but I can't live my entire life trying to avoid his disapproval." The letter is delivered on a Thursday evening. Derek gives it to his mother when she comes home from work, asks her to read it with his father, and then goes to his room to wait. The initial response is about what Derek expected: raised voices, crying, and what sounds like furniture being moved around. Derek texts updates to Dr. Williams throughout the evening, providing a real-time account of his family's reaction. 7:15 p.m. gave them the letter. They're reading it together in the living room. 7:45 p.m. crying and shouting. Can't make out words but doesn't sound positive. 8:20 p.m. Dad came upstairs, asked me to come down for a family discussion. Wish me luck. 9:45 p.m. back in my room. That was intense. They want time to think and pray about it. At least they didn't kick me out. 10:30 p.m. Mom knocked on my door. She said she loves me no matter what but needs time to understand. That's something, I guess. The next few days are tense but not explosive. Derek's parents don't speak to him much, but they don't treat him with hostility either. It's more like they're trying to process completely new information and don't know how to react. On Sunday, Derek is surprised when his parents ask him to skip church and stay home for a family conversation instead. "We've been praying and thinking about your letter," Mrs. Ashford begins, "and we have some questions." What follows is the most honest conversation Derek has ever had with his parents. They ask about when he first realized he might be gay, whether he's acted on these feelings, and what he hopes for in terms of relationships and family life. Some of their questions are based on misconceptions. They ask whether he was recruited or influenced by anyone, whether this might be a phase he'll outgrow, and whether there are medical treatments available. But Derek answers patiently, drawing on information he's learned from Dr. Williams and his support group. He explains that sexual orientation isn't something that can be changed or chosen, that he's known about his feelings for years, and that he's not asking for their approval so much as their acceptance. The conversation lasts for 3 hours and ends without resolution, but also without rejection. "We need more time," Mr. Ashford says finally. "This challenges everything we thought we knew about a lot of things." "I understand," Derek responds. "I've had years to think about this, and you've had a few days. Take the time you need." 3 weeks after Derek's coming out letter, Mrs. Ashford calls Dr. Williams again. This time, she wants to schedule a family counseling session, not to fix Derek, but to help the family learn how to navigate this new reality together. The first family session is tense and awkward, with everyone choosing their words carefully and long silences punctuating difficult conversations. But subsequent sessions become more natural, and gradually, a new family dynamic begins to emerge. Mr. Ashford struggles more than his wife with accepting Derek's sexual orientation. But even he begins to soften as he learns more about the science behind sexual orientation and meets other religious families who have maintained strong relationships with their LGBTQ+ children. The turning point comes when Dr. Williams arranges for the Ashfords to meet the Hendersons, another family from their church whose son came out 2 years earlier. "We went through exactly what you're going through," Mrs. Henderson explains during a joint family session. "The fear, the questioning, the worry about what this meant for our son's faith and future." "How did you get past it?" Mrs. Ashford asks. "We realized that our love for our son was more important than our discomfort with his sexual orientation," Mr. Henderson responds. "And we learned that being gay doesn't mean he can't be a person of faith or have a meaningful, fulfilling life." Derek watches this conversation with fascination. These are people from his own church, sharing his family's basic theological beliefs, who have found a way to reconcile their faith with their son's homosexuality. "What about the biblical passages that condemn homosexuality?" Mr. Ashford asks. "We studied those passages extensively," Mr. Henderson says. "We learned about historical context, translation issues, and different interpretive approaches. We also talked to our pastor about it." "Pastor Williams supports your decision." "Pastor Williams helped us understand that the Bible's central message is love and acceptance, not condemnation and rejection." This revelation is perhaps the most surprising development of all. Derek had assumed that their church's leadership would be uniformly opposed to accepting homosexuality, but it appears that there's more theological diversity than he realized. By the time school ends in May, Derek's family situation has stabilized into something approaching normalcy. His parents still struggle with some aspects of his sexual orientation, but they've moved from rejection to acceptance and from fear to cautious support. Derek continues attending the support group at the AIDS Foundation, where he's become something of a mentor to newer participants dealing with family rejection. His experience of navigating religious family dynamics has given him insights that help other young people in similar situations. Tommy and I complete our community service hours at the foundation, having learned more about prejudice, empathy, and the complexity of human identity than we ever expected. Our punishment has become genuine education, and we've developed a much deeper understanding of the real harm that casual prejudice can cause. The software cheating that started our entire conflict feels trivial in retrospect. Derek makes full restitution to everyone he deceived, paying for replacement copies of all the games he effectively stole. He also apologizes publicly for his deception, taking full responsibility for his actions without trying to justify or minimize them. But the most significant change is in the relationship between Derek and me. We're not exactly friends, too much has happened for that, but we've developed a mutual respect born from shared experience of consequences and growth. As I finish typing this story on my laptop in 2020, I'm struck by how different the world is from the one we inhabited in 1994. The internet has made information readily available. Social attitudes toward LGBTQ+ individuals have evolved dramatically, and many of the barriers Derek faced as a teenager have been reduced or eliminated. But some things haven't changed. Young people still struggle with questions about their identity. Families still sometimes react badly to their children's sexual orientation, and prejudice still causes real harm to real people. Derek and I stayed in touch through college and beyond. He became a social worker specializing in LGBTQ+ youth services and has spent his career helping other young people navigate the challenges he faced as a teenager. He's been in a committed relationship with his partner David for over 15 years, and his parents, who initially struggled to accept his sexual orientation, adore David and consider him a son. Tommy became a software engineer and eventually started his own company developing educational games for children. He credits our experience with the AIDS Foundation for teaching him about the responsibility that comes with creating content that might influence young minds. I became a teacher, partly inspired by our experience with consequences and learning. I've spent the last 20 years trying to help teenagers understand that their actions have far-reaching implications, and that empathy is often more powerful than revenge. The fake letter that started this entire drama is still in my possession, carefully preserved in a folder with Derek's real coming-out letter and copies of the apology letters Tommy and I wrote to his family. It serves as a reminder of how a moment of anger and poor judgment can spiral into something much larger and more complex than anyone anticipates. But it also reminds me that people can change, grow, and find ways to move forward from even the most difficult circumstances. Derek's family learned to prioritize love over prejudice. Tommy and I learned about the weight of our actions and the importance of considering unintended consequences. And all of us learned that revenge, no matter how justified it might seem, rarely produces the satisfaction we expect. The most important lesson, however, is one that Dr. Williams taught us during those long Saturday afternoons at the AIDS Foundation. When we act out of anger or desire for revenge, we often become the very thing we claim to oppose. In our desire to punish Derek for his dishonesty, we became dishonest ourselves. In our attempt to embarrass him for his prejudice, we perpetuated the very prejudice we claimed to reject. Real justice, we learned, comes not from revenge, but from understanding, growth, and the hard work of building a more compassionate world. The floppy disks that started our conflict are long obsolete now, rendered irrelevant by technological progress that has made information sharing effortless and universal. But the human lessons we learned in 1994 remain as relevant today as they were 26 years ago. Sometimes the best revenge is learning to be better than the person who wronged you. Sometimes justice means helping others avoid the mistakes you made. And sometimes the most profound victory is turning your greatest failure into someone else's opportunity for success. Derek still sends me Christmas cards every year, usually with a photo of him and David and their adopted children. Inside, he always writes the same message: "Thanks for helping me find my way home." I think he's got it backwards, though. In the end, Derek helped all of us find our way home, to a place where truth matters more than comfort, where love is stronger than fear, and where people can grow beyond the worst versions of themselves. That's a much better ending than any of us could have imagined back in 1994, when we thought revenge was the answer to betrayal and justice was just another word for getting even.
Karma doesn't miss, but was this fair? Share your take below, like the video, subscribe for more raw stories, and send it to someone who knows betrayal too well.